And I think we can commend the team at ECG, at the Energy Ministry, and at the Finance Ministry, that they continued to dig and dig and dig. They have this, and they have given good advice which has been acted upon.
Well, that is the government take on the subject, that the state actively, at all times, protected our interest as citizens in a PDS matter. What is your verdict on that? And how the state has often acted in the past in protecting and serving your best interest? Ghana and beyond will connect to discuss. And we connect after the break.
Success of our show. Trusted, innovative financial services, providing inflation support and solutions. Customer-oriented, superior services. Your success of our show. 10 good years of loyalty, service with integrity, protective of our Ghanaian brand. 10 years. 10 years of loyalty. Your success of passion. Oh yeah. Your success of passion.
Your success, our passion.
Get 100% bonus when you top up airtime with Vodafone Cash. Dial *110# to top up now. If you know, you know. The future is exciting. Ready?
Thank you, folks. On my A list today, show some love for Contractor EB. So, Contractor, what do you think about the country's changing skyline?
Oh, send them down there, Shurima. Across skyline, they change you, papa.
Wow. Contractor, don't you get worried when you hear of buildings collapsing?
I'm not for an answer on Tassam. It is the likability of using low quality product.
Please explain why.
Yeah, cement is no quality on your gasem. Village of Fefu. It was built with gasem. Says the gasem is your construction. Osi ho pumping. She N1 KJT market. Kotokana Kumasi Airport. Cape Coast Stadium. Atwabu gas project na. Gasebo. Messi what the quality. You know what is quality?
Gasem. 3 cement grades. Greater value. Gasem. The nation builder.
Promo way there, I had the. Some you see me mumu. If you say MTN Echimachedia no, Edia to table. Brand new Samsung 65-inch UHD Smart TV. Na brand new 2019 Hyundai. And I feel 3,000 Ghana there. You should say mono. MTN Momo. Still, Misaka, the journey of 1,000 smiles. Yes, I see 10 years ago. And to celebrate this milestone, MTN give you away exciting prizes in the MTN Momo Attend promo. Yeah, you use Momo no. You could win one of the 2019 Hyundai i10 cars. Yes, some Samsung Smart TVs for baby. And they up to 3,000 cedis e-cash every month. And a grand prize, 2019 Hyundai Santa Fe in the MTN Momo Attend promo. Into sign it on and then keep using your MTN Momo. Now when you big, if it's happening, you see August only on Ghana's best network. Dial *120#. Now check your points. Terms and conditions apply. Just Momo it. We're there for you everywhere you go.
The Kingdom Books and Stationery Limited's Back to School promotion is here with us again. From the 1st of August to the 30th of September, Kingdom Books and Stationery Limited is giving a generous 10% discount on all school items like textbooks, pens, pencils, erasers, exercise books, and much more across all our branches in Accra, Tema, Kumasi, Takoradi, and Cape Coast. Parents, teachers, and students, please hurry while stocks last. For more information, call us on 0302 764 101 or 0302-764-209 or email info@kingdomgh.com. You can also visit our website www.kingdomgh.com. Kingdom Books, where quality and affordability are both assured. Terms and conditions apply.
Honey, I need to get some.
But I don't have cash on me. Let me get some fuel quickly and let's go.
And how are you going to get the fuel? I thought you said you didn't have cash on you. What is this one?
My Puma card.
All it takes is a card. The Puma card allows you to buy fuel cash-free from all Puma energy filling stations. You can use your Puma card with any Visa point of sale and ATM across the country. The Puma card also works on mobile money. You get amazing discounts when you fill up with your Puma card. So register for free and get your Puma card instantly at any Puma filling station.
And you only got one for yourself, eh?
Yeah, would I have had my piece of mind?
Oh, thank you, honey.
And where are you going?
I'm getting something from the shop real quick. I need to test the card.
Puma card. Cash-free convenience.
Thank you very much, Mr. Evans Manson. I listen to you every day, and I encourage you and thank you for all the educative programs you mount.
So you're live on Ghana Connect. This is Joy 99.7 FM. My name is Evans Mensah. And of course, we've had a week of some very intriguing controversy. It all has to do with this PDS matter that we've been debating. And I've had many of you raise questions about whether the state adequately protected our interests. And that is a conversation we're about to have tonight. And some say this is just an example of how things have happened. Not only some point of accusing fingers of Parliament. Why couldn't Parliament spot this and insist that it be corrected before they approved it? But parliamentarians also point fingers at the executive. They say, well, you changed the terms after we approved it, and so you can blame us. But what about the technocrats, those who are not politicians, who we also pay quite sizable amounts of money, who work in these state agencies who are supposed to also do this? How long would it have taken to make a call to Qatar, Al-Quds, and check about the guarantee, the status of it, and its ability to carry through what it claimed it could? So these are questions that needs to be answered. And tonight we're going to pose that question. Citizens are going to debate it and see if we could draw any lessons from what is happening with PDS. But how many times haven't this happened and we said never again? And so let's have this conversation tonight. You can join us wherever you are tonight. This is how you can do so.
Join us now on Twitter, #Ghana Connect Live, Facebook, Joy 99.7 FM, or send us a WhatsApp on 0244 340 437. And we will call you back. Join the nation's biggest conversation now and connect to authority.
And that's how you can join us. In the studio with me tonight connecting is Vincent Lecha Kobla Jokoto, who is mergers and acquisitions practitioner and columnist. Hello, Vincent.
Hi, Vince.
Thank you for connecting. This is a man that used to come here quite a lot. For the past 2 years, I haven't seen him. He's surfaced again. He in his previous incarnation, he was very central to what Imani used to do. Now he's a CEO, West Cape Buy Now, Pay Later tech consultant. He still consults for Imani Ghana, by the way. Hello, Isidore.
Hi, Evans.
Great to see you again.
Nice to see you too.
Also connecting in the studio is Hardi Yakubu. Is the Fighter-General Economic Fighters League, who is joining us. Economic Fighters League. That's a nice name, actually.
Yeah, thank you.
Great. Tell us about it. What do you guys do?
We are a grassroots political movement that is mobilizing young people and the oppressed to overthrow the system of oppression that we have in this country.
Militancy. Anyway, later on we'll connect to Dr. Rashid Ramani, Executive Director of the Africa Center for Parliamentary Affairs. Pauline Anaman with the ASAP will also join us with her thoughts very shortly. Wherever you are, don't forget you can connect with us. Connect on WhatsApp 0244340437 and have your say. Send us your WhatsApp. We'll try and have us a few. If your view, we'll try and exercise editorial judgment on what you say, we might call you in to share your thoughts wherever you are in the world. Really, once you're Ghanaian, you're allowed to join us wherever you are. Send us our WhatsApp 0244-340437, and you get to talk to us live on this particular program. I want to start, gentlemen, by inviting you to listen into the Information Minister Kojo Oppong-Nkrumah, who makes a strong case that we should applaud the state agencies that worked on this, because it is through their diligence that they found this potential alleged fraud that led to the advice to suspend PDS. He's actually answered the poll question we put for you to try and gauge where you are on this. Did the state adequately protect your interest in the PDS ECG deal? That is the poll question. You'll be fascinated by the poll results. But Kojo Oppong-Nkrumah, the Information Minister, answers that question in a strong affirmative that the state did. Listen to his argument.
The Ghana side on the 28th of February is the one that now starts its continuous due diligence. The first time the Ghana side seek to find out, the feedback that we get, the official feedback that the Ghana side gets, is that all is well. They do a second level of check, this time looking at the numbers in some more detail, that even though you may have underwritten this risk, your balance sheet may not be able to support it. So they probe further. It is the further probe that brings the first red flag that there may have been something wrong with the initial guarantee issued and the second confirmation, in fact the first and second confirmations. Then they go a next step of sending people to the offices of this organization to do some further engagements. And that is where they let us understand that the person who issued this did not have mandate to issue that particular confirmation and document in the first place. They have moved beyond rumor and speculation and now have prima facie basis to believe that something untoward has happened and that the guarantee that everybody has signed off to is invalid. But I think what we can all be pleased with is the fact that the Ghana side never went to bed. We're a country that don't like believing that our own people can do this. I think we've seen it in how they dealt with the Canadian issue. Initially, people said, "Oh no, it's not true. It's the Canadians who came to find the ladies." We have found out that it is true. It took Ghanaians to do it. In this instance as well, everybody else missed it. It took the Ghanaians to find out. And I think we can commend the team at ECG, at the Energy Ministry, and at the Finance Ministry, that they continued to dig and dig and dig. They have this, and they have given good advice, which has been acted upon. The administration is not going to hide anything, but ensure that the right thing is done.
Isidore, that's the government's point of view on this. You agree?
That we should commend the state agencies for doing a good job.
Yes.
So what is a good job?
The good job is that they spotted the error. They didn't go to bed, he says. We didn't sleep on the job.
But what prompted the continuation of finding out whether the deal was good or not? I wonder why the state agencies continued to probe it further after the deal had been signed. That's my first question. Because if you were assured that the deal had been closed, within the proper context, I wonder why you'd be interested in finding out whether... I'm really confused. So, first of all, I'm not convinced that the state agencies did a good job at all. If they did, we wouldn't be where we are right now. I think something happened right after signing the deal, and that alerted members of the state agencies responsible for us to have stable electricity to probe into the matter further. So I do not think that there has been a good job done here at all. It's funny to hear that.
Vincent?
Well, I believe that it is quite obvious that, the minister has to do some damage control as far as, the government is concerned. I mean, all you're deciding is this, the general public does understand that this has not been an instance where our state purse, that it seems like our state purse is being protected.
And the beauty about that is that we've done 3 polls on 2 social media platforms, 3 social media platforms, Twitter, 2 separate Facebook accounts, Joy News Television, Joy News Radio. We'll announce the results shortly. Fascinating. Thousands and thousands, almost 5,000 people have responded to the poll question. Did the state adequately protect your interest in a PDS ECG deal? And to see whether they agree with your view that, people know that something went wrong.
And time again, Evans, the political establishment has proven itself incapable of protecting the interests of citizens, especially on the negotiation table. Now, I'd like to draw your mind to, the whole idea of what happened with MPS. Where we had a clause where they could have increments that we had no say, over. And this is a situation where this contract is going to span over three decades, 35 years for that matter. So there have been many instances where we've realized that deals have been signed, and we have to also acknowledge the fact that all these institutions, if we even want to put it on a much more specific basis, have legal departments in some of the much smaller institutions that are supposed to act as checks and balances on deals like this. So to think that these supposedly well qualified administrators of our public affairs and all these contracts go through all these supposedly competent people, and at the end of the day we still find leaks in them. And what the government tells the people of Ghana is that, well, we failed at our job and we've recognized our failure, and therefore you should commend us for recognizing that we failed to act upon or protect your interests. So I believe that there's, in one breath, you could listen to what he's saying, that's the Minister Kojo Nkrumah, as a half-hearted apology and an attempt to save the government. He's obviously not going to go against his government, But at the same time, I think that, it just lowers the confidence that we have in the administration as a whole. And also, it prompts one to think that how many more contracts across the various ministries, that have passed through Parliament have failed to actually take into account the protection of the public purse, how we assure as a citizenry that we're getting value for money on some of these contracts. And now it's also clear that the kind of work ethic that the government has presented to the people as being deemed worthy of having hasn't necessarily been one that has manifested itself in some of the results that we're seeing now. So definitely I definitely haven't been pleased with what's going on. It raises red signals all over other public contracts as well, and we need to see much better public administration.
But Hardi, the truth is, we spotted it, and this is Kojo Nkrumah's argument that MIDA, which is a Millennium Challenge, compact appointed agency representing, it's a subsidiary of the U.S. Compact, right? And then they have the International Finance Corporation, IFC, which was the transaction advisors. They did due diligence on this initially. Briefly, they didn't spot this. And then Kojo Nkrumah argued it was a Ghanaian, ECG Ghanaians, who, when they decided to go into the thing, make the discovery that something was wrong. I mean, that he says should tell you that the Ghanaian didn't go to sleep. It was when you trust the Ghanaian, he can deliver, and that your interest was primarily protected in this and secured and guaranteed in this matter by the Ghanaian and not the foreigners that sometimes we trust.
Well, I can agree with the minister on the point that the Ghanaian representing the personality of all of us, can be trusted to do a good job. It's just that the Ghanaian's government, his government, the system of governance that has been in place over these years is incapable of protecting his interest. But the Ghanaian, as a personality, is capable of doing a good job.
But that's a very interesting dichotomy you're drawing.
Yes,
because it's a Ghanaian who makes up the government.
Certainly, but there are several characteristics that differentiate the Ghanaian in government, or the Ghanaian in the privileged class, if I may even put it that way, in that class context, and the Ghanaian in the other class, the other side of the spectrum.
But you have to be a Ghanaian in the other class first before you migrate to the Ghanaian in the privileged class.
Well, not necessarily, but even if that is the case,
nobody is born. Ab initio by being
not necessarily.
You made a graduation, but even education, etc., privilege, heritage.
Fine, Evans, but even if that is the case, once people graduate, then the interest and the class interest definitely change. Okay. And once the class interest definitely
changes from what? Changes from protecting the interest of the majority.
Exactly, to protecting the interest of the few.
Of the few, okay.
Exactly. That's the kind of economic system that we have. That's the kind of class system that we have. But so in that case, I agree with him. The Ghanaian is capable, but the government is not capable, and the government has certainly not been protecting the interests of the people. Now, I think Isidore asked the question as to why the continued due diligence, because clearly I heard from the Minister for Energy, who I think should have resigned by now, if that part of Ghanaians
I'll ask your view on this dichotomy he's drawing. I don't think there's a Chinese wall there because they say you get the government you deserve. We are the government. You go on. I mean, it's an interesting point.
Clearly. So the energy minister says that they were rushed into signing this deal by the Millennium Challenge Corporation.
Yeah.
And this brings me, in my analysis of this, into looking at the theory advanced by Kwame Nkrumah called the theory of neocolonialism, where he says that the essence of neocolonialism is that the state that is subject to it is, in theory, independent and has all the trappings of international sovereignty.
In theory.
But in theory. But in practice, its economic policies and therefore its political decisions are dictated from outside.
You think that's what happened in this case?
That's what is happening in this particular case. And in fact, in most of our decisions that we've made in this country. So the blame that we can put on the government is that we have a government that is incapable of standing on its feet to say that this is what is in the interest of my people. And I mean, how can you allow yourself to be rushed, if indeed you were rushed, into signing an agreement that transferred 18 billion worth of assets just because you were getting 500 million? I mean, that doesn't make sense to me. That doesn't make sense to me. So, and you want to ask yourself, where is Parliament in all of this? Where is Parliament in all of this? Because it's not just a deal that went to Cabinet, and then Parliament definitely played a role in all of this. And clearly the answer is that Parliament is basically a useless body when it comes to agreements like this. The executive will just pass it, put it there, and they will just pass it.
The argument they've made this week is that they raised the red flags. Nobody paid attention to them.
Who is nobody?
The executive.
So Parliament, who raised the red flags? Where is the evidence?
How can we verify that?
Can we verify that?
Actually, I think this very matter should draw attention to the capacity of Parliament to protect the interests.
But why are we making this about Parliament?
It's very important.
No, because Parliament is supposed to be the check.
Exactly.
It's supposed to be the check.
Parliament is supposed to represent the broader interests of the public.
Exactly.
The government is very partisan. Let's be.
But Parliament is partisan.
No, it's not. It's not supposed to be. The Parliament is supposed to protect the interests of the broader, citizenry. So I think every MP, parliamentarian member, is entitled to a research assistant. We're supposed to help them in delivering on your duty.
Yeah. Yes, they have research assistants, but
the research assistants,
a lot of them are paid between 300 cedis and 500 cedis.
which is very bad. So
how are they supposed to survive in a crowd?
And I think some of the MPs don't also know how to read and write. I understand.
True.
So how can these people protect our interests?
I don't necessarily believe that they had to be proficient in the English language in order to protect the interest. There are mechanisms that do support them. They, you did mention that Parliament is indeed a representation of the broader public at large, and when you look at the literacy rates, it's only fair that you have people that might not necessarily find
also represent the side of the population that
ends society. But I think largely the interest there is that the reason why we find those very few individuals protecting our larger interests is that it is a career. So they're taxed with the challenge of ensuring that things like this do not occur. Because I mean, it isn't a Big Brother republic. None of us can actually, monitor the business of Parliament on a daily basis, and that's the reason why we decided to pick somebody from one of us from our constituency, to check. On dues like that. But I think it raises a broader issue when it comes to civic dialogue and the constituents getting involved and also putting pressure on their members of Parliament to deliver a much better job. I've always said that our democracy has been quite weak in a sense where we don't have a culture where we have enough town hall meetings, where we have a situation where constituents can actually hold their parliamentarians to that level of standard on which they may have promised them or may have convinced them for which they've attained power. So when it comes to town hall meetings, when it comes to reaching your MP, when it comes to querying your MP, or when it comes to the relationship between the MP and his constituents, that hasn't been something that has really been part of, the political culture at large as far as the Republic is concerned.
But Isidore, aren't we unnecessarily bashing the MPs here? Because
I don't think so.
This week they've explained that what the executive finally implemented is not what they passed. That what they passed did, in fact, had a higher bar for qualifying to take over ECG's distribution services.
Which in any case, Evans,
yes.
I think it's even that explanation points to the weakness of Parliament. How can you be a check? A quality control, then you pass some. No.
How can you allow that?
Exactly.
Go to government
what else can they
and
do?
allow the government?
What else can they do?
If Parliament passes an agreement, it becomes law.
Yes.
So for it to be changed, it needs to go back to Parliament.
No, but who?
If they did not,
if
they did not, it means somebody broke the law.
Who?
And has to be
not Parliament. If the executive must. If they're going to change the terms, which indeed changed, because one of the first
and they didn't go back.
One of the first terms that, in fact, Parliament approved, and I can show you the document, is that the PDS needed a bank guarantee, not any ordinary bank guarantee, a bank of a certain higher class, right? And then Parliament said that's what we approved. But when it goes to the executive, it was then watered down to an insurance guarantee, which is now the issue.
So the question is,
if you listen to ASAP and Co, if government had gone with a strict rule, which Parliament approved of the bank guarantee, and you got a bank of that class to give you that guarantee, there'll be nowhere you come back and say the guarantee I got from, say, an HSBC in London is fraudulent. That's the argument.
So the
how do you blame?
The question is, what makes the executive think that they can bypass what Parliament has passed, even against the law? Because
my point is, how do you blame Parliament?
I'm coming. Parliament has to be able to pass an agreement and hold the executive to it. Is it that they just pass it and they sit there? If the executive changes it against them, because mind you, if Parliament passes an agreement, it becomes law. If the executive changes it, it needs to go back to Parliament for approval. What makes the executive think that they can just take an agreement that's been passed by Parliament, change it any way they want without going back to Parliament for approval and just go on implementation?
And for Parliament to keep quiet over the matter, over the
exactly.
No, they haven't kept quiet because this week they spoke.
No, that's this week. When the matter became public, I'm saying that when it was not yet public,
exactly. Somebody ought to be hauled.
Exactly.
And a vote of no confidence, or a vote of censure passed on that particular person. That's when Parliament will be doing its job. But as it stands now,
our parliamentarian system is weak. The government is not accountable to Parliament, and that is very bad.
In fact, we don't have a democracy, if you ask me.
No, okay. So here's the thing. What about the technocrats, the faceless technocrats in all these state institutions? And remember, the Attorney General saw this, Finance Minister saw this, Energy Ministry saw this. He went to Cabinet. I mean, just MIDA. IFC, all these guys that were all being paid with the taxpayers' money to make sure this deal, once delivered, is watertight. What about those faceless technocrats? Why are we blaming the politician only?
And as much as I agree with the fellow panelists that Parliament as an effective check and balance on our democracy ought to have protected our interests and deserves a great portion of the blame, I'd much rather focus on the technocrats as far as this is concerned, because that's the part of our democracy, or the part of our republic where we get very little closure. People normally regard that as the political silhouette or the invisible government that we don't quite see. And I believe that when instances like this come out, there should be a stronger emphasis on accountability and ratting out exactly who's been involved in these deals, the contributions they have made, and seeing that justice ensues at the end of this. So I have read some reports suggesting that we would get some investigations, and this is where my problem comes along, that there are scandals of this, caliber that we've seen in this republic over and over again, from the visa to whatnot. Now, my problem is that when the government comes to assure us, or for example, if not to be a pessimist with what Mr. Poinkroma has said, we could take his word for it. That we could just take his word for it, not to be patronized, but to give him the benefit of the doubt. But there's been no better time to exercise the RTI bill, and I believe that this is a pristine opportunity for us to test how strong that bill is and how that could aid in this fight against corruption.
It's not enforced yet.
It hasn't been enforced.
Which bill? Say that again.
The RTI bill.
Oh yeah, RTI. Okay.
Yeah, because I believe that, you know, when you find yourself in a situation like this, we find ourselves in, you know, as the citizenry in a position where government tells us that we're going to do investigations. It takes long. It's very difficult for us to access that information, and it's very difficult for us to see that there's some sort of reasonable end to this, you know, and that some people are held accountable. I think we have a culture where, you know, any opportunity to put somebody behind bars, or any opportunity to, you know, attribute some sort of fault to the individual who's been largely or primarily responsible for this is something that never really sees the light of day. You know, so I am much more interested in the investigations that would follow this, you know, whole scandal that has ensued, I guess, now before the public, and seeing that we do have some results. If there are some technocrats who have been involved, they should be brought to book. We should know at least exactly what transpired. And if
often they get the cover, they hide behind the politicians. They get the cushion. The politicians take the blows and get hit. We probably will vote them out at the end of 4 years. But the technocrats they stay there.
Once you have your deputy minister saying something that this was a grand scheme, you know, it doesn't just show him as somebody who's not doing a great job of what he ought to be doing, but it also, you know, suggests that perhaps the corporations do have a lot, because we normally do blame the government. Very little, you know, of that fault is apportioned to the corporations as such. But I believe this is a very, you know, a unique case where the government clearly isn't ready to accept responsibility for it, but also isn't being candid in who exactly is responsible for it. So if the Ministry of Finance has been that diligent, if the Ministry of Energy has been that diligent, obviously some heads will roll if the credibility of the government is one that should be protected. You know, not that they need bad faith or to, you know, render somebody unemployed over a scandal, but just to protect our democracy, our government, and the caliber of it at large. It has happened before. We saw Mr. Boakye Jacko go, you know, over something not quite similar, but still on the same immoral breath when it comes to
allegedly. Let me bring an issue. There's a point that Hardi makes at the beginning, which is this dichotomy he draws between the wider Ghanaian, you know, populace and the elite class. Our government, as so he speaks, and says the problem is not us, it's them, and I'm making the point to him that it's us that become them. I mean, can you make that distinction? Say that it says that the people up there they seek their, you know, interest of self, not our national public interest, not your interest. Can you erect that Chinese wall between the two?
I think the system is designed to protect the interests of the few in government.
Explain.
So I do not think that is the doing of the people in government. I think it's the government system that's designed to behave that way.
What system? Define the system.
The governance system. You see, you have a political system where you essentially have three mechanisms. You have the executive arm, you have parliament, and then you have the judiciary. The government is voted into power. You have the parliament that is also elected by the populace, and you also have the judiciary. You want the government to deliver on their promises. You want parliament to help government in delivering on these promises. But the truth is that the interconnectedness between these three mechanisms is very weak. So you don't find them being accountable to, or you don't find the executive arm being accountable to Parliament, and you don't find Parliament also being accountable, being transparent with the people. You know, so they tend to protect themselves because the system is just designed.
Who created the system? We did. We did because just a second, I'll come to you.
Yeah.
We did. This Constitution, the first page says this. You know, we are everything. The power emanates from us, and we voted in a referendum and said the Constitution is okay. So we created that system. Why are you blaming somebody
to
else?
us? I don't think we created it. So I wouldn't, if I was given the opportunity, I wouldn't have voted for the system. No, I wouldn't have voted for it. I don't think that.
Exactly.
See, when have you ever had a member of the government come out to speak or disagree with the government on anything? When have you ever heard that? It doesn't happen.
Because we run a winner takes all.
That's the point. So the system is designed to protect the few in government. So I agree to a very large extent with my brother.
You agree with Hardi?
That yes, the few in government
are protecting their interests.
Are protecting their interests, and they are different from the broader public. How can you have how can you have a member of parliament?
Here's a further question, and Hardi, because you started it. If they do, if what you argue is true, that the few at the top do protect their interests, haven't we allowed that to happen? I mean, if it's true that the power emanates from us, we vote for them. We give them the appointments. In fact, they serve us. We appoint them every 4 years, and we appoint the same people. So we allow that to happen.
Well, Evans, first of all, the constitution that we have is a Sakawa constitution, and that's what established a Sakawa constitution, and that's what established this kind of system that we have. That's what established that kind of system that we have, and we theoretically have power to put them there.
Theoretically,
we
do have real power.
No,
I mean, what will happen in 2020?
I'll tell you this.
We are going to be employing all these people. We will employ all of them again.
That's where the problem lies.
But where does it lie with us?
Once you vote, that's it. You have no other power until 4 years. What kind of power is that?
What other power do you want?
If you misbehave in multimedia, they'll sack you tomorrow.
They will.
Yes. Why can I have an employee who I cannot sack? I can't sack him until 4 years.
Why can't you sack him until 4 years?
That's a fake democracy. And in any case, I mean, you have a system that has made sure that majority of the people are in abject poverty. Recently, the Ghana Statistical Service has released the Ghana Living Standard Survey. It shows that 9.2 million Ghanaians cannot afford 5 Ghana cedis a day. I spent more than 5 Ghana cedis to do transportation to come here. 9.2 million Ghanaians cannot afford 5 Ghana cedis a day, and that's official figures. I'm very much sure that it's more than that. And I just want to ask you a question.
Please do.
If you cannot afford 5 Ghana cedis a day, and some of these people, even 2 Ghana cedis is a problem, and somebody comes bearing bags of rice and bundles of cash, just so that you can go and thumbprint for him, just that, what would you do?
I'll take the money and vote properly. So that's the point I'm making.
That kind of so
I'll take the rice, the bag of rice, because I'm hungry.
No,
but when I get into the vote, I'm going to vote for somebody who I believe will protect my best interest when he win again.
In that situation, your best interest, your best interest,
bags of rice.
But it's not the problem I'm making, and the problem is us.
But what do you think about
the problem is the system that created the situation where I cannot afford 5 Ghana cedis and where exactly.
That's I think the problem is the system that is the system that allowed those people to vote. I don't think that everybody should be allowed to vote in.
Where are you going?
No, I'm serious. I think that you see, when you take JFM, for example, not everybody makes a decision here. But you're part of the system, and you are supposed to actually deliver on a decision.
Are you a Democrat?
I wouldn't say I'm a Democrat. I'm a pragmatist. I want to be pragmatic. You cannot allow everybody to have to decide how we are governed. It's not possible. I don't think.
I think.
I know. This is very controversial.
I don't think it can help us. So I think we need some people to come out, with a strategy and say this is what we want to do for this specific period of time. We allow them, we vote for them. Not everyone vote for them. We vote for them.
So who we vote? How we
will have to define, I think, a proper way to decide who vote for these people. But the point I'm making now is that not everyone should be eligible to vote because it does not serve the broader interest of the country in the long term.
Wow.
Because the people who vote, I don't think
very extreme view. I'll come to you, forgive me, because I need to bring in Pauline.
I disagree.
I know. All of you make your notes on that, but let me start with Pauline. The fundamental question: do you think that the state often acts in your best interest as a citizen? I mean, just flowing from the PDS matter. What you've seen the PDS matter. You held a press conference today this week.
Yeah.
If you're taking that as an example, and all that you've known in your adult life, the way the state has acted in these matters, does the state act in your best interest all the time?
No. So here's the thing.
first of all, I'd like us to go back to the theory of social contracts.
Yeah.
Right. And talk about how Thomas Hobbes and co. try to help us understand the essence and importance of government. We all agree that we want to wield our power to someone who is powerful because we are all selfish human beings. And if we are left alone, we would trample over the other person.
The rule of the jungle will reign.
Exactly. So the essence of government is to bring order in society and also to provide certain things that as an individual I wouldn't think would bring me much benefit, like providing public goods. So if you ask me a question about whether or not the government has served my best interest, then I'll look at it from the angle of public goods and providing the basic needs of citizens to help them thrive and to also live the aspirations of people as provided in the constitution, protecting our welfare and ensuring that we have a democratic state that ensures people's well-being. So if you ask me, well, I have been in Ghana all my life. The only time I've gone outside is to study. I don't have any business living outside, right? But over the years growing up and when I became a very conscious human being, I have seen a lot of changes over time. Okay, I started questioning the functions of government and the issue of fairness and equality and citizens' well-being and worth when I was in senior high school, and that is because I went to a deprived school. I really wanted to go to Wesley Girls, but they said I had 07, so they won't accept me. That is fine. But I made it to a secondary school which was really deprived. We had to go to town, walk like 200 meters to town, to bath in town, get the bucket and come. You go with your bucket, you fetch water from town, you come to campus for the morning, and then basic things like electricity wasn't available. Our library was not stocked at all. We didn't have adequate teachers, So as a young child growing up, I started forming ideas about what is the essence of my government to me when I faced all these circumstances. And I compared myself with students in Wesley Girls having all the facilities and us needing to compete to go to the university on the same level. So at that point, I realized that in this Ghana, government is unable to meet all of our needs. And the question is why? And the question also is, how do I contribute to making it better? So basically, that's how my ideology of things from then. Growing up, I've lived in Tesano for like almost 14 years, and I have seen how even the road infrastructure has improved over time. It was really bad, but beginning last year, it changed. So for me, if you ask me whether government is serving my interest, it is a very mixed feeling for me on a personal level. But on an economic level, having worked in ASEP for 3 years since 2016 and having seen some of the deals that have been passed and all, I feel that when it comes to high-level impacts, economic impacts on the country's economic health, I feel that sometimes, or most of the times, government is inclined to do things on a short-term basis. Look at our budget. When you look at the supplementary budget that was raised, if you look at the energy section, look at how citizens will be taxed further just because of inflation and depreciation of the cedi.
But the argument there is that they are doing that in your best interest, because they need the money,
you see,
to make the economy run,
right,
to provide the road, the water, etc.
Yes,
that you complain
I
about.
agree with you, but then if you are working in people's best interest, you have to look at the strategy. It's not just about thinking about, the end game. You have to think about the process. How do we get there? It has to be very strategic in ways that it is Pareto efficient. Everybody benefits. Nobody is left behind. So if you look at how they've even increased, they plan to increase the taxes on electricity, whatever fuel product you buy, it is very short term. There are systemic ways of addressing issues that governments do not have time to address fully. And that is, again, because of the cycle we have in our elections, right? And sometimes people have, so I have so far spoken about how I have a mixed feeling about government addressing my need on a personal basis, and how I feel on the macro level, government is not doing well because of the short-term approach to doing things. And now I'm moving on to the why the short-term approach is, right? So if you look at our governance system, we have every 4 years, we elect new government. We have to change.
Or keep the old one.
Yeah, and then if you look at the trend from 92, it appears that when a person is elected for the first time, he's likely to go the second time and then no more.
Yeah,
that has been the trend until.
So maximum 8 years.
Maximum 8 years. So governments could mess up in their first 4 years and they could give excuse as we were putting things in place.
Which is what always happens.
And I found the conversation about how citizens can hold government responsible interesting, and how the gentlemen here are saying, well, we always have had to wait for every 4 years to take them out. But if you read the Constitution, if you read Article 69, it tells you how you can remove the president when he's not performing economically. So, let's read.
No, we're talking about parliamentarians.
All of them.
No, if you say government,
but even members of parliament, there's a
you can remove them.
No, that it's only the speaker who can dismiss them.
It's only the speaker who can dismiss them.
Citizens cannot remove their members of parliament according to the Sakawa constitution.
Yeah, Pauline, you were making a point.
I was making the point from Article 69, 1. Okay, removal of the president. The president shall be removed from office if he is found in accordance with the provisions of this article to be incapable of performing the functions of his office. Okay, this one is by reason of infirmity, but there is this provision that talks about if he's not able to manage. Okay, so if his actions are prejudicial or inimical to the economy or to the security of the state.
That's theory. That will never happen.
No. But let her read further. Please, I want you to read clause 2.
Okay, so for the purposes of the removal from office of the president, a notice in writing signed by not less than 1/3 of all members of parliament. So this This one talks about the process of removal.
Yeah, that's the only way you can remove a president. The citizens themselves cannot remove their president.
Yeah. But okay, so
that's the point I was making.
Okay, now can't we put pressure on parliament to remove?
That is.
And here's another problem with our system. Okay, and so this is theory. I now agree with you that this is theory because now if Parliament even decided to remove president, our system has, so it's arranged in a way that Parliament, the incumbent has majority in Parliament.
So anyway, but here's the thing. I mean, we talk about the executive and Parliament all the time. but yeah, you had a point to make about Isidore's point earlier.
Well, he did make a valid point, interestingly enough, because not everybody is allowed to vote. You've got to be of a certain age.
But do I hear you guys saying that a big part of the problem is us ourselves and the system? The reason why our leaders, you all believe, do not serve our best interest all the time is because of the system?
Yeah, it's because of the system.
You also say that?
No,
the system.
Well, I beg to define it because when
you said the system. You mentioned the system a lot.
Yeah, I did. But then when I was talking about social contracts, I mentioned that there are certain things that government is called upon to do. That is why there's a social contract, right? I find that for most Ghanaians, the problem we have is we look up to government all the time to address all of our needs, and that is where
because there's a social contract.
You see, but you have to also situate yourself.
So then it's us.
Yeah,
it's us.
So
the problem is us.
We have a. If you have a mindset that government should do everything, and let's be realistic, okay?
They can't do everything.
Let's be realistic.
But at least they can.
No, but let's define everything. We don't expect government to give us oxygen.
No, wait.
But we expect government to do our roads because we pay taxes for that purpose.
To scrutinize
exactly,
and
that's why we pay them. So if they don't do that,
yes. So on that level, then yes.
Okay,
Vincent. Well, I understand the frustration with our democracy at large. I think for a democracy that's been quite infant, we're still contemplating, or we're now going to consider a referendum that would allow us to even elect our MCs and our DCs. And we all know that when you look at the problems of the mass at large, it's always in one of infrastructure, it's always in one about community development, and that's something we've been largely deprived of. Now, the reason why the citizenry may primarily seem inept is, well, first and foremost, the language of instruction that we use for governance is not one that the majority of the country is necessarily comfortable with. And when we're looking at parliament, we're really looking at legislation, we're really looking at policies, but the majority of the Ghanaians are striving or craving economic independence. They want, if there's a free market enterprise that's supposed to serve the interests of communities, they want to see exactly how that can be improved. If it is about their DCEs and a common fund, they want to have a say on exactly how much that money is spent. And they don't want a system where things are centralized, that one policy dictates for all, because these are very unique circumstances in their own selves. So to have a democracy that has, existed for this long, or to have a constitution that from its onset didn't give us that independence, or didn't actually exercise the sovereignty of the people to extend that. They couldn't even decide district development, which is the central focus of where we are as a republic of the moment. It goes to say that, yes, we do have a democracy. We do have the right to vote. But those socioeconomic rights that we've been enhanced with have been trickled down to an extent. And so we're only now getting to a stage where that's being contemplated, that's being considered. And so Ghanaians at large have never really been enhanced to contribute to nation building.
That's what I was going to say. So all of you seem to agree that the way the system is structured right now incapacitates the citizen to ensure that the people they vote for and pay to serve their interest actually do serve their interest.
Yes.
And right? Is that the agreement here?
Yes.
Okay. I want to connect to Dr. Draman. He is the executive director of the Africa Center for Africa Center Parliamentary Affairs. Hello, Doc.
Yes, Ivan.
Yes, thank you for connecting. There's a lot of focus in the wake of the PDS matter on Parliament, and already in the studio, people have said, "Oh, Parliament didn't do a good job. They should have spotted this," and etc., etc. Is that a fair assessment, appraisal of Parliament in the midst of all that we've seen?
Yes, I think. I didn't hear what they said because I'm not in the country. I'm just connecting right now. But I think any assessment in terms of Parliament not really doing its job well, I think I would agree with that assessment. But I think there are so many explanations to it. Some of it I think is Parliament's fault, and some of it is not Parliament's fault. One that is Parliament's fault is, I think, the part that, over the years, they know that they need to strengthen the institution. They need to have structures in place that will help them in the kind of scrutiny that they need on some of these agreements and bills that come before them. Nothing stops Parliament from creating the structures. I worked with Parliament under the 6th Parliament when Right Honorable Duajaho was Speaker. We prepared all the documents, all the structures that are needed to have a scrutiny unit in place to perform
due diligence, proper due diligence on the documents.
Exactly. We did that. Everything was passed by the Parliamentary Service Board. If you ask me today where that unit is, Evans, I don't have an answer. Just a few weeks ago, I was at the University of Ottawa in Canada. We had a global network of parliamentary budget offices. That is all the countries around the world that have parliamentary budget offices for us.
And Doc, I'm grateful that you join us with those thoughts. And I guess it's come back to the point Isidore is making, and Hardi has made about the constitutional arrangement. It's called the Sakawa arrangement. But I guess he also agrees that the kind of system we have makes it almost impossible, to check these officers we put out there to properly, represent our interests. I want to share with you the poll results and what a lot of you have been saying since the conversation started. So we asked in the poll we put up on Facebook. There are two separate polls, one on the Joy News page, Joy News Television page, and one on the Joy 99.7 page, and then one on Twitter. The one on the Joy News page had 1,000 voters, and we asked, did the state adequately protect your interest in the PDS ECG deal? At the end of the polling, we had 80% said no, the state did not. 20% said yes, the state did. And I deliberately use state, and I realized a lot of my guests apparently were using government and state, but they're two distinct things, right? Because government is simply the NPP government, but the state transcends that into all the independent states, including the technocrats who work there, so the general consensus on the matter, as far as the poll is concerned, 80% of the 1,000 people who cared to vote said no, the state did not represent your best interest. Only 20% said they did. If you check the poll on the Joy FM page, which had far more voters, 1,600 voters, 78%, very close again, said no. Our interest wasn't represented as well as it could. Only 22% said yes, our interest was adequately protected. And I guess this reflects what we've said in the studio, Pauline.
Yeah.
You agree with that?
Yeah.
But so what do we do going forward? And this is not, the PDS matter is not the first we've seen of this matter.
And it won't be the last.
And it won't be the last. I mean, in my time, I've seen a lot of deals that is passed, is scrutinized, it goes through all the processes, and then some way, somehow along the line, we find out we've made a major mistake. And then either we pay judgment debts, huge costs incurred. Even as of now, we don't know whether we've lost anything or not with this PDS arrangement. And so, how do we fix it, Pauline? Very brief comments around the table.
Well, I think that I disagree with the argument that citizens are powerless. We've been given the constitution. The constitution is like a theoretical document and all of that. I still believe that we can influence things, and I will take inspiration from the Road Must Fall campaign that happened as far back in 2015, where students in South Africa they talked about discrimination and they raised their voices against that, and it went across other universities across Europe, including Oxford in US, Harvard, and all of that. And students even protested against the university investing resources in other countries, because if the university did not accept this whole reaction against this whole reaction about racism, students weren't going to agree to how they even invested their monies. So I think if we might think we are powerless, but if we rise up as a country, if we rise up as citizens, I think the challenge with us is the fear. And I see it even in our classrooms. Okay,
yeah. I mean, but there's a cultural thing. We've not been raised to be
part of the system.
What's your own take on the solution?
That's part of the system.
Just for the sake of time, yes, briefly.
Yeah, so briefly, I'm saying we don't have to be afraid. We have to be bold about our ideas and sell it.
Okay.
Yeah, and garner support for that. But the problem we have is that people are too afraid to speak up.
Yeah. Hardi.
I agree with Pauline. It's not that we are inherently powerless. People, the masses have a lot of power. It's just that it's not being
we've not been
expressed,
oriented,
and the culture is part of the system. Really, it makes it a point to put down young people and to put.
An important point you've made also is that the people who we've paid to protect our interests at all times also are a product of the culture.
Exactly. And so, but you asked the question. So what do we do? What we need to do is that we have to look to the roots of the matter, and the root of the matter is what created this system that we are all complaining about. Is the secular constitution.
So we need to change the constitution.
We have to abolish the secular constitution and make sure that in Parliament, for instance, the legislature, for instance,
what do we do?
We have to bring proportional representation.
What I couldn't agree more that we do need an entire review of the constitution at hand, but I believe that the fourth realm of the estate is doing an amazing job in keeping the citizenry informed. We need that to continue, but I believe that the relationship between the parliamentarians and their constituencies is one that needs to be enhanced. How can we do that? I believe we need to provide infrastructure and have a situation where, even if it's quarterly, if it's bi-weekly or whatever it is, we have a situation where they're communicating effectively what they're doing at Parliament or the business of government, to their constituents.
You're talking about strengthening the accountability processes between the executive and
certainly.
Isidore, 30 seconds, really.
I disagree with the position that citizens have to agitate to get what they deserve.
Okay.
It does not make sense to me. You voted people in
but
power.
It's your right?
It's your right, but you do not have to agitate for it. Imagine you are
entitled.
You are entitled.
No, but you are not getting it.
No. So it does not make sense. That system. Imagine having parents where you have to agitate.
So what do we do? What do we do?
So I think that so the first thing, Parliament is supposed to protect the interests of the people, and Parliament is incapable of doing that because of the way Parliament is composed. I think we should have one third of Parliament should be independent, or should be made of independent members.
That's radical.
Yes, I think so.
But it comes down to changing the constitution.
No.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm grateful that you connected. Enjoy the rest of the day.